We will keep pressing, we will keep pushing, keep advancing, no quarter, no mercy for our enemies. As the escalation in the Middle East intensified and 3,000 American troops were already deployed to the border with Iran, military bases across the United States shifted into high gear to move heavy equipment overseas. Music. The infantry and Marines were on the ground, but they needed armor, artillery, and vehicles to fight a sustained campaign. That meant seal lift. Rail yards on military installations began loading armored vehicles onto flatbed rail cars. Tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored trucks, all driven up ramps and onto the trains, secured with chains and blocks to keep them from shifting during transit. At the airfields, Boeing AH-64 Apache attack helicopters were rolled out of hangars. Their rotor blades folded for storage were unfolded and locked. The Apaches were powered up, lifted off, and flown directly to the port where naval transport ships were waiting. If Helicopters would be loaded aboard and shipped alongside the ground vehicles. When the rail convoys arrived at the ports, the scale of the operation became visible. Spread across the staging areas were columns of military vehicles stretching in every direction, jeeps and light utility trucks for moving personnel, high-gear rocket launcher vehicles, fuel tankers, light armored vehicles, and heavy armored trucks. M113 armored personnel carriers, Humvees fitted with turret-mounted weapons, M1 Abrams main battle tanks, each one weighing over 70 tons, M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, recovery vehicles, engineering equipment, mobile command posts, and dozens of other specialized military machines, all of it lined up in rows, engines off, waiting to be driven aboard. The vehicles were organized into loading columns and began moving toward the seal lift ships docked at the pier. These are large roll-on, roll-off vessels designed specifically for transporting military equipment. Vehicles drive up the stern ramp under their own power and are parked inside the ship's cargo decks. The loading process is slow and methodical. Each vehicle has an assigned parking spot inside the ship based on its weight, size, and the order in which it will need to be offloaded at the destination. The heaviest vehicles, the Abrams tanks and Bradleys, go to the lowest decks where the ship's structure can handle the weight. Lighter vehicles go higher. Everything is mapped out on a load plan before the first vehicle rolls aboard. Drivers move the vehicles up the ramp one at a time, guided by ship's crew using hand signals and radios. Inside the cargo decks, the space is tight. Vehicles are parked inches apart to maximize capacity. Every turn, every reverse, every stop has to be precise. One wrong move and a 70-ton tank clips the vehicle next to it. The timeline for loading was 3 days. That meant the crews worked around the clock? Day shifts and night shifts? No. Breaks in the operation. During the day, sunlight came through the open ramps. At night, the cargo decks were lit by overhead industrial lamps and the headlights of the vehicles being driven in. Forklifts moved pallets of spare parts and ammunition into storage compartments between the vehicles. Smaller equipment, toolkits, radios, medical supplies was packed into containers and stacked music wherever space allowed. Once each vehicle was in its assigned position, the securing process began. Ship's crew and Army transport specialists worked together to chain every vehicle to the deck. Heavy-gauge steel chains were run from tie-down points welded into the ship's deck to attachment points on the vehicle's frame. Each chain was pulled tight with a turnbuckle and locked. A single vehicle received multiple chains, front, rear, and both sides to prevent any movement in any direction during the ocean crossing. After 3 days of continuous loading and securing, the ships were full. The stern. Ramps were raised and sealed. Mooring lines were cast off. Tugboats guided the heavy vessels away from the pier and into the shipping channel. The seal lift ships moved out into open water, formed up, and set course for the port in the Middle East, where the equipment would be offloaded. Escort vessels took positions around the convoy. Meanwhile, on the border with Iran, American forces already on the ground were putting their existing equipment to work. A higher battery received a fire mission. The M142 HIARS vehicle, a 6-wheeled truck carrying a single rocket launcher pod, was parked in a concealed position behind a low ridge. The crew had been waiting for the order. When the coordinates came through, the crew moved fast. The order to fire came. The first rocket ignited and launched out of the pod with a massive burst of flame and smoke. The truck rocked from the force. Seconds later, the second rocket fired, then the third. The rockets streaked into the sky one after another, arcing toward the target, an enemy vehicle staging area dozens of kilometers away. Each rocket carried a payload designed to destroy armored vehicles and equipment in the open. The moment the last rocket left the pod, the crew began packing up. The launcher was lowered back to travel position. The driver threw the truck into gear, and the HIARS pulled off the firing point immediately. Meanwhile, at a forward position, an American reconnaissance team was preparing an unmanned aerial vehicle for a surveillance flight. The drone came packed in a hard case. The operators pulled it out and began assembly on a flat patch of ground. Wings attached to the fuselage, tail section locked in, control surfaces checked for free movement. The camera pod on the underside was powered on and tested. The feed confirmed on a portable ground control station sitting open on the hood of a vehicle. Batteries were inserted and the motor was spun up briefly to verify it was running clean. The motor caught and the drone climbed quickly, banking away toward the assigned surveillance sector. On the ground station screen, the live camera feed showed the terrain below in real time. The operators watched as the drone flew over ridge lines, open ground, roads, and dry riverbeds, scanning for enemy vehicles, troop positions, supply routes, or anything that looked like military activity.